We got a gubernatorial election coming up, in case you guys haven't heard about this. And from time to time, in fact, we have a lot of candidates that are running in Michigan. I think the number is up to 13 now, I'm not sure. But there are some candidates who I think have sort of stood up among the rest. We've had a few here already that are very good, but this next one is one I always admire. A businessman, somebody who comes from the business world, who was not a career politician, a successful man who, sort of like President Trump, who is willing to give up their, let's say, well-earned lifestyle to do public service. And Kevin Rinke is a man like that, and I really appreciate him coming tonight. He's the head of the Rinke Automotive Group, which was one of the leading automotive groups in the country, which is quite an accomplishment to do something like that. And he also became the owner of Cassell & Associates, a rehabilitation workforce for traumatic brain injury, which is quite a switch from automotive to also get into healthcare. And being that he can work with brain injury, I think as governor he could cross the aisle and maybe negotiate with the Democrats. And he also was with Centera Health Group. I'm sure I'm probably not pronouncing that right. Michigan-based company that provides autism therapy. So it's more than just business. He's a caring man, and he's as far as I understand, he's self-funding his campaign with a lot of money, and that in itself, I think, says a lot. So it's my distinct pleasure to invite up here Kevin Rinke. Thank you for coming up.
Thank you very much. My name is Kevin Rinke, and I would like to be your governor. And as indicated, I am an outsider. I've never aspired to be a politician. I've never aspired to be a governor. I'm interested in being a public servant, in serving you. And I'll tell you a story as to why I'm doing this. I'm going to start with, before Michigan was a state, my family was here. Back in the days when the French trading post at Detroit operated, if you look on those historic maps, you'll see that there was a farm, and it was the Cadieux farm. My middle name is Cadieux. That was my family on my mother's side. On my father's side, we came in the 1800s. And we had a farm implement business. We rented horse-drawn carriages from Bill Durant, and they were made in Pontiac, Michigan. And when Durant migrated into automobiles, he was one of the founders of General Motors, he took us with him. And 4 generations later, having served thousands of Michigan residents, having employed thousands of Michigan residents, having supported hundreds and hundreds of families and communities, we still operate those businesses. And I think it's important when we look at the governor's role to recognize that it's one of the few roles that it should be mandatory that private business experience, real life experience, be a requirement, because your job is to run the business of the state of Michigan. To do that, and earlier they said 13 candidates, I thought it was 188 or somewhere around there. I think we need to look at the person. And yes, the party is important, but look at the person. Look at their values, look at their experience, look at their ethics, and then associate that to the party. Because when we have political infighting, It really is a representation of people who aren't qualified for the job that they've been elected to. They were slick campaigners. They were single-issue people. They were really popular in the community, but maybe didn't have the experience. And so what they resort to are things like what we have right now in Lansing. And I want to talk about it because I believe Michigan's at a tipping point. 4 years ago, under the Snyder administration, at the State of the Union, the State of the State, the budget was $53 billion. 4 years ago. 3 weeks ago, Gretchen Whitmer proposed a budget of $74.8 billion. That's your money. And that's an increase of 50% in one administration. And what happens when you have unqualified people that don't have a vision, that don't understand leadership? They try and throw money at the problem because that's their solution. But understand that it's your money. In Michigan, currently ranks 41st in economic recovery post-COVID, 41st. We're trending right now to be 44th out of 50 states. Michigan, under this administration, led the country per capita in small businesses closed. Michigan led the country in personal income lost because of draconian shutdown rules as we had an elected person who was auditioning for a different job. She wasn't interested in public service. She was interested in career climbing. And if you step back for a moment, I'm going to say that I believe that our current Vice President, Kamala Harris, might be, if not is, the worst Vice President I've ever seen in my lifetime. Would you agree with that? Yeah. So let's be perfectly clear and put it into perspective. Gretchen Whitmer auditioned for that job, and Kamala was more qualified than her. But we have a challenge. We have a challenge because we have a party that's split. We have a party that's split. Earlier, there was a speaker talking about Republicans bringing up different taxes and voting for them. We have people going in different directions, and it's a vacuum. The person who is supposed to lead the state is failing. An autocratic power, my way or you're wrong, is the least effective form of leadership that exists. And you're seeing all over the state what the impact of that is. And I'm going to tell you a few stories. One, I believe that we have to have secure elections. Not because it's a Republican issue, not because it's a Democratic issue, because it's the responsibility to preserve our republic that government oversees fair, honest elections. 80% of the people in America think that it makes sense to have a photo ID. It shouldn't be partisan unless you have bad intent. As I stand here tonight, over 500,000 people are on our voting rolls that have not been active in over 20 years in Michigan elections, or they are incorrectly registered. Now, isn't that an opportunity if you have ill intent? So I want to go back to some things like common sense. And under a Rinke administration, common sense to vote. How about you have to be a citizen of the state? That should be really tough, right? How about you have to be alive? How about you have to be registered correctly? And how about you have to have a photo ID that proves who you are? I'll work with our Secretary of State, I'll work with our Attorney General, and I plan on them being Republicans. If you people get out and vote and you are active, we will sweep back and take back Michigan. And now is the time. Not because it's partisan, but because it's right. And the fact that we're Republicans and conservatives, we should be proud of that. There's nothing wrong with family. There's nothing wrong with religion. There's nothing wrong with various ethnic groups coming together for what is right and what is good for America. I've been all over the world. I've been in all the stands. I've been in Russia. I've been through Northern Africa. And the thing that impresses me the most, everywhere, people want to come to the United States because of what it stands for. And the most common thing they tell me is you get to elect your leadership. So we need to protect that. We also need to have a common sense approach to education. Again, I like to tell stories. I've been on a tour in the Upper Peninsula, and I approached a group of teachers the other day, and they said, what are you going to run on in regards to education? And I said, well, some statistics I'll throw out. 84% of the third graders in Detroit currently cannot read. 84%. My data shows that over 30% of the students that graduated from public schools in Michigan last year couldn't spell their name. They identified predominantly with initials. That's the workforce that we're drawing through. And the teachers stood up and they said, stop. I won't vote for you. And I said, really? What have I said wrong? And they said, mental health is the issue. Mental health. I don't care. I don't give a damn if my kids can read. I don't give a damn if they can write or do math. Mental health is the issue. And I said, that's kind of interesting to me because before COVID, when schools were open, when we weren't practicing political science versus medical science, we didn't have this issue. So you participated in creating mental health issues for the kids, and now you want to get away from teaching them? Let's just say I'm not going to get their vote.
Kevin, I'm wondering if you wouldn't mind doing some Q&A from them.
Yeah, I will, and I'm sorry. Guys, there's so much to say. Understand that I'm a business person, an outsider. I will govern using common sense, and this is public service for me. I'm not auditioning for another job, okay? I'll give you my all, and that's the only thing that I want to do for you. I'm happy to take questions.
I would like to start, our lovely Julie Day is going to bring the microphone around if anybody has a question. Just raise your hand, she'll bring you the microphone, she'll hold the microphone. I'd like to kick off with the first question.
Sure.
The most important thing that I'm looking for, and a lot of people are looking for, is somebody who can beat Governor Whitmer, somebody with the guts and the spine to attack her on what she has done with the death of a lot of people in our nursing homes and what she did to our economy and how she used tyrannical rule that was unconstitutional. We're looking for somebody that's willing to call her out and who can beat her in the fall. And can you be that man?
Well, here's what I'm going to tell you. It takes three things if we want to change Michigan. It takes money, okay? It takes the willingness to serve, and it also takes the willingness not to care about getting reelected. This is about doing what's right. We are at a tipping point, folks. So, can I beat Gretchen Whitmer? Yes, I can, because I'm putting forth significant money of my own, and I'm not completely self-funding. I got to tell you, please throw money my way. I can use it. Okay? Happy to take it. But are we qualified to do the job? And I'm going to challenge all of you to go to my website, Rinke from Michigan, and look at the results that I've been able to obtain, not for myself, but for other people. And that's what motivates me, getting results for you. I'm 61. Again, I never thought of doing this. And then the third component is, are you willing at any expense to do what's right? And I'm going to have a contract with Michigan. I went out with Newt Gingrich, and I asked him how he came up with the contract for America and how the process that he went through. And while Newt explained it, what I discovered was it's the same process I've gone through for the 7 areas that I'm going to represent the state in. And you'll see a principles document on my website that'll tell you what I'm going to work at. And it focuses on doing what moves the state forward. What's so interesting is 90% of what I propose benefits everybody. And you know what else is interesting? What I propose allows for a smaller government. What I propose allows to give back money to you. What I propose is creating an environment for the people of the state of Michigan to be successful in. And the way I do that is I provide 5 elements. Where are we going? How are we going to get there? Who do you go to for help? How are you doing along the way? And what's in it for you? And that's how I'll govern. You'll know, you'll understand. I won't be down in a rabbit hole when things get tough. I don't run, I don't hide, and I will not back down for what is right for you. That's my word, that's my commitment. And I challenge you to ask my employees, because for over 35 years, and thousands of them, I've proven that to them. And I'm very, very proud of that. My family has proven that. And this is personal, because I think we're on the verge, if we don't change, of losing our state. And I don't want that to happen. Not for me, but more importantly, I don't want it to happen for you. Any other questions?
I have 2 questions.
2.
2. Really? The first was there had to be, unless you've thought about this for years, there had to be a triggering event that made you decide to make this decision. That's the first question. What was the trigger? And the second one, what was the first and most important thing you would do to stop the indoctrination of our children?
Got it. Okay. The first one, what triggered me to do this? I'm going to say this with a bit of shame, okay? My wife, my son, and I have 3 kids, by the way, but my son was home from college. We're on the couch, and I was talking about leaving Michigan. I was done. Angry about government, angry about the environment, angry about the political gridlock. I have a farm down in Kentucky, and I like to farm. I process my own meats, I grow cattle. To me, that is just something that I always wanted to do. And when I was a kid, I worked on a pig farm and loved it. Let me tell you, it stopped smelling bad and started smelling like perfume. But to the point, my 23-year-old son looked at me and he said, "Dad, what are you talking about? I love Michigan. I want to live here." And he said, "I've watched you your whole life do things for people and fix things and make it better." And he said, "Why don't you get up off the couch and instead of moving out of the state, why don't you fix it?" And that's the nicest whoop on the side of the head that anyone's ever given me from a 23-year-old kid. The next day, I get a text from a friend in Idaho with the quote, "For tyranny to prosper, good men need to sit by idly and do nothing." And I can stand here before you and say, I'm a good man, and I want to do something. And my choice is to stay and fight for you, fight for Michigan, the state I love, and fight for our republic. So that's why I'm running. Number 2, he said, what's the first thing I believe. The question, ma'am?
What will you do to stop the indoctrination?
Stop the indoctrination, thank you. Day one, similar to Glenn Youngkin, I won't wait for the legislature. I will sign an executive order stopping CRT, 1619. I will stop any form of education or indoctrination that divides people by race, religion, creed. There's no place for it. It's just simply that simple. And the kids will never miss it because the kids don't recognize color. They don't recognize everything that's in that document that tears this country apart. We've got to maintain the foundation of what this country stands for. Freedom, personal accountability, independence. It's valuable. It's so valuable. No mandates for masks, no mandates for shots that aren't really even vaccinations. Now, if you choose to have one, great. But this social justice of you don't have a mask on, so you are a bad person, you know, whoop them upside the head. That's ridiculous. We're free here in America. And I'm going to allow Michigan to choose. Kids go back to school. We're going to open them up. We're going to keep them open. And by the way, we're going to create accountability measures so our kids can have a future that contributes to Michigan, that contributes to your communities, that builds that foundation that creates families. Because I believe that everybody can learn. And I believe everybody wants to learn if they're given the opportunity. Do you realize our public schools have outlawed critical thinking? Yes. Yeah. It's ridiculous. Critical thinking was the nucleus of what I learned under. It was creativity. You could go out and search. It was beautiful. It was inspiring. And now, our public education system and the Democratic Party says that kids that go to public schools should only be taught what the community wants them to know. That sounds like socialization, indoctrination, and a whole bunch of things that isn't my Michigan. And it will not be allowed. And the governor will do everything that I can to eliminate those types of issues. You have my word on it.
Right here, Kevin.
Yes, sir.
Hi. You mentioned you were a farmer. Is that correct?
Well, not professionally.
But you have a farm.
Yes, sir.
I think that's awesome. One of the things that I've heard from other farmers around the country is that due to ESG scores and the Great Reset, a lot of farmers are making less money, but the products that they're making, because of the very few like meat packing companies that there are in the country, are charging more for their products. So it's crushing them. And so farmers all across the world, cattle ranchers and everybody, I'm sure you understand this as a farmer. I'd like you to speak to that, but also as a governor, what would you do? What would be your plan to eliminate ESG scoring, which is the backbone of the Great Reset, and which, by eliminating it, you could completely neuter it in the state of Michigan if you could somehow get rid of it, because ESG scores require businesses to have economic, social justice, and governance mandates that are mandated by, the fascists that are running those companies. So what would you do to eliminate ESG scoring in businesses, but also in pension funds, because that's where BlackRock, right? All the pension funds are invested in BlackRock, and BlackRock is the major funder of ESG and pushing it all around the country.
Yeah. This is what happens when government's out of control, okay? The social justice side of things, and I'm going to refer back to Martin Luther King. He was looking for equal opportunity, not equal outcomes. And think about that. I want a Michigan with equal opportunity. We don't need government talking about social justice the way government currently talks about it. We've got a legal system that when we follow it is the best in the world. My uncle was a judge. He went to Saudi Arabia for 5 years because they wanted to understand the U.S. legal system. Now, we can say that it hasn't worked too well for the Saudis, or it only works when they want it to, but their form of governance is different. So I'm going to reduce regulations on businesses. I'm going to reduce the role of government in your life. My farm is my farm, okay? I farm it for myself, and so I don't understand the major farms, but I do believe this, that we need to look at farmers and this governor has been attacking farmers with regulation. I believe that farmers can regulate themselves voluntarily and come up with great things that will lower prices for the people in Michigan. And that's what should happen. And again, what's going to be taught in the schools? Reading, writing, arithmetic. We're going to prepare kids and bring vocational opportunities back into the schools starting under my plan in 8th grade and give kids credit because we have to have a qualified workplace. Very few people know Michigan, which is unique, I'm sorry, long-winded, but there's a business opportunity, and we're the only place in the country that this opportunity can be executed. And the initial estimates are $3 trillion of investment. $3 trillion of investment. Families, highly educated people, tax revenue will come into the state, but we have to have someone that understands how to lead and create that environment.
Okay, we've got time for one last question. Sorry, people.
Yeah, and I'll stay longer if you'd like. I'm happy to.
I'll hold it.
Okay. I guess you were commenting on this, but could you comment on the importance of increasing charter schools to bring society back to where it was?
Yeah. So charter schools, which are a form of public school, interestingly enough, in the same environment as the public schools, get much, much better results. Much better results. And I think it's a shame that the MEA doesn't focus on the children. And we need to be accountable. And we need to get rid of the hypocrisy. Reestablish the rules of what we expect for teachers. And I'm willing to start with the MEA because I'm going to set standards that have all been eliminated. And if the MEA doesn't want to work to that, then I'm willing to fight the MEA no matter what, because this is about the children and getting results for your children. We need to have educated people. And this governor is paying off the MEA pandering, trying to buy votes. $9,000 teacher bonuses, not for accomplishing or getting results, but for showing up. $9,000 per teacher to show up. It's a nice gig. Do you realize that in Flint, they receive $40,000 a student to prepare the schools to open for COVID? The MEA put the money in their pocket. Flint schools are still remote. City of Detroit, $23,000 per student. City of Detroit schools are still remote. Isn't it interesting that democratically controlled cities are 3.5 times more likely to have remote education, to mandate masks, to separate the kids than Republican-controlled cities? Last thing I want to tell you before we're done. Michigan, I said we're 41st, trending toward, or 42nd, trending towards 45th in the country economically. Here's what's interesting and where our opportunity is. Of the 20 top performing states, 2 of them are governed by Democrats. That's great. 2 of them. 18 of them are led by Republicans. That's better.
Make it 19.
Hang on. Here's what I really want to know, and here's why I'm going to be able to do that for you. 17 of the 18 Republican governors are first-time elected business people that have created an environment for their citizens to be successful in. Let's get at it. Let's go out and win. I want your support. I want your vote now, so I can go to work for you. Thank you very much, folks. I appreciate it.
Kevin Rinke, thank you so much for coming, sir. Kevin Rinke for governor. Thank you so much for coming.